Imagine for a moment that we finally made contact with an alien intelligence, not through radio signals from distant stars or mysterious spacecraft, but right here in the waters of our own planet. This intelligence has been with us all along, hiding in plain sight in coral reefs and rocky ocean floors. It has 8 arms, 3 hearts, blue blood, and a distributed brain that defies everything we thought we knew about how intelligence works. It can change its shape, color, and texture in milliseconds. It can solve complex problems, use tools, and possibly even dream. It recognizes individual humans, holds grudges, and shows what appears to be playful behavior. Some scientists who study them report feeling distinctly observed, as if they're not just studying an animal, but engaging with another mind, one profoundly different from our own. This isn't science fiction. This is the octopus. For millions of years, while our ancestors were still figuring out how to come down from the trees, octopuses were already masters of disguise, problem solvers extraordinaire, and architects of underwater cities. They evolved intelligence completely independently from us, taking a path so different that studying them is like studying the product of an entirely separate evolutionary experiment in consciousness. Their last common ancestor with humans lived about 600 million years ago, a simple flatworm-like creature that couldn't even be called intelligent by any stretch of imagination. This means that octopuses and humans evolved complex brains and sophisticated behaviors completely separately. They are, in the words of philosopher Peter Godfrey Smith, the closest we will come to meeting an intelligent alien. And what an alien it is. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms, which can taste what they touch and sometimes seem to act independently of the central brain. They have camera eyes remarkably similar to ours, yet they evolved them independently. They can see polarized light, possibly perceive colors despite being colorblind, and their skin itself might be able to detect light. Tonight, we're going to dive deep into the mind of Earth's most alien intelligence, exploring how a creature that lives only 2 years developed problem-solving abilities that rival those of mammals, how an animal with no bones became a master escape artist, and what the octopus can teach us about the nature of consciousness itself. To understand octopus intelligence, we first need to understand what makes them so fundamentally different from every other intelligent creature we know. Let's start with their evolutionary history. Octopuses are cephalopods, a group of mollusks that also includes squid, cuttlefish, and nautiluses. Yes, mollusks. They're more closely related to snails and clams than to any vertebrate. Yet somehow, from this humble lineage of shell-dwelling creatures, arose an intelligence that can rival that of many mammals. The story begins about 500 million years ago when the ancestors of modern cephalopods developed a crucial innovation. They filled their shells with gas for buoyancy. This allowed them to float and swim, rather than crawl along the ocean floor. But floating made them vulnerable, a delicious soft-bodied snack for any passing predator. The evolutionary pressure was intense. Get smart, or get eaten. Around 275 million years ago, the ancestors of octopuses did something radical. They abandoned their shells entirely. This might seem like evolutionary suicide, giving up their primary defense, but it freed them to become something entirely new. Without rigid shells constraining their bodies, they could squeeze through impossibly small spaces, manipulate objects with unprecedented dexterity, and develop the shape-shifting abilities that would become their trademark. But losing their shells meant they needed new survival strategies, and fast. The answer was intelligence, not the slow, steady intelligence of long-lived mammals, but a fast, flexible, almost improvisational intelligence that could adapt to any situation in real time. The octopus body plan is unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. They have no bones, no rigid structures at all, except for a hard beak, like a parrot's at the center where their arms meet. The rest of their body is pure muscle, capable of elongating to twice their relaxed length, or contracting into a space no bigger than their beak. They're essentially a muscular water balloon with a brain, or rather, brains. This brings us to perhaps the most alien aspect of octopus intelligence, their distributed nervous system. While we have one central brain that controls everything, an octopus has 9 brains, a central brain and 8 mini-brains, one in each arm. The central brain contains about 180 million neurons, but the arms collectively contain about 320 million more. Each arm can act semi-independently. Tasting what it touches, their suckers are covered in chemoreceptors, solving problems, even continuing to react to stimuli for up to an hour after being severed from the body. It's as if each arm has its own personality, its own goals, its own decisions to make. The central brain can give general commands like search for food, but the arms figure out the details themselves. This distributed intelligence creates behaviors that seem almost impossible. An octopus can be focused on a predator with its central brain, while its arms independently search crevices for food. It can change color and pattern on one half of its body, while keeping the other half still. It can coordinate all 8 arms for complex manipulation tasks, or let them work independently on different problems. Their sensory world is equally alien. Octopus eyes are remarkably similar to ours in structure, a beautiful example of convergent evolution, where nature found the same solution twice. But there are crucial differences. They don't have a blind spot like we do because their optic nerves attach to the back of their retinas rather than the front. They can detect polarized light, which may allow them to see contrasts and patterns invisible to us. But here's where it gets truly strange. Octopuses appear to be colorblind. They have only one type of photoreceptor in their eyes, while we have 3 types for detecting different colors, yet they can match colors in their environment perfectly when camouflaging. How? Recent research suggests several mind-bending possibilities. Their strangely shaped pupils might create chromatic aberration, allowing them to detect colors through a completely different mechanism than we use. Or their skin itself might be able to see. They have the same light-detecting proteins, opsins, in their skin that they have in their eyes. They might literally be seeing with their entire body. But intelligence isn't just about having neurons. It's about what you do with them, and what octopuses do with their neurons would make any engineer weep with envy. Let's talk about their shape-shifting abilities first, because this is where octopus intelligence becomes visible in the most spectacular way. An octopus has about 200 specialized skin cells called chromatophores per square millimeter, millions across their entire body. Each chromatophore is a tiny sac of pigment surrounded by muscles. When the muscles contract, the sac stretches into a disc, revealing the color. When they relax, the color disappears. But chromatophores are just the first layer. Beneath them are iridophores, which reflect light and create iridescent colors, and leucophores, which scatter light to provide a white background. By coordinating all 3 types of cells, an octopus can create virtually any color or pattern imaginable. The control system for this is staggering in its complexity. Each chromatophore is controlled by multiple neurons. The octopus brain must coordinate millions of these cells in real time, creating moving patterns, matching backgrounds, even displaying different patterns on different parts of its body simultaneously. It's like having a high-definition TV screen for skin, except each pixel is under conscious control. But they don't just change color, they change texture too. Specialized muscles can create bumps, ridges, and spikes, transforming smooth skin into something resembling coral, rock, or seaweed. They can make their skin smooth as silk or rough as sandpaper, create tall papillae that look like algae, or flatten completely against a surface. Watching an octopus camouflage itself is like watching magic. In less than a second, it can transform from a smooth brown creature into what appears to be a lumpy white rock covered in algae. The transformation is so complete that even when you know an octopus is there, you can lose track of it. But camouflage is just the beginning. Octopuses also use their color-changing abilities for communication, creating patterns and displays we're only beginning to understand. They flash colors when fighting, create moving stripes when hunting, and display complex patterns during mating. Some species even seem to dream in color, their skin flickering through patterns while they sleep. Now we come to the heart of our story, the genuine problem-solving intelligence that has made octopuses legendary among marine biologists. These aren't just reflexive behaviors or trained responses. Octopuses demonstrate genuine cognition, planning, and even what might be called creativity. Consider the famous case of Otto, an octopus at the Sea Star Aquarium in Germany. Otto apparently didn't like the bright light above his tank, so he learned to shoot jets of water at it to short-circuit it. The staff would come in morning after morning to find the aquarium in darkness, expensive equipment ruined, until they finally caught Otto in the act. When they secured the light, Otto found other ways to cause mayhem, juggling the hermit crabs in his tank, throwing rocks at the glass, rearranging the tank decor. This wasn't just problem-solving, it seemed to be entertainment. Or take the octopuses at the Seattle Aquarium, who learned to sneak out of their tanks at night, travel across the floor to other tanks, feast on fish, and return to their own tanks before morning. The staff only discovered this when they noticed fish disappearing and found octopus arm prints on the floor. These escapes require planning, spatial memory, and an understanding that humans leave at night and return in the morning. Tool use, once thought to be the hallmark of human intelligence, is routine for octopuses. They carry coconut shell halves across the ocean floor to use as portable shelters. The only known case of an invertebrate carrying tools for future use. They use rocks to break open shells, arrange stones to create fortified dens, and even use jellyfish tentacles as weapons, carrying them in their arms for protection. But it's in laboratory experiments that octopus intelligence really shines. They can learn to navigate mazes, both by trial and error, and by watching other octopuses. They can solve multi-step problems, like opening a series of different clasps to get to food. They can learn to distinguish between different shapes, patterns, and even individual humans. In one remarkable experiment, octopuses were presented with a clear plexiglass box containing a crab. The octopuses had to figure out how to open the box to get the food. Not only did they learn to open it, but when presented with the same box with a different opening mechanism, they would first try the old method, then quickly adapt and figure out the new mechanism. This shows not just learning, but flexible problem-solving and memory. Even more impressively, octopuses can learn by observation. In experiments, octopuses watching another octopus solve a problem, like choosing between two colored balls to get a reward, learn to solve it themselves much faster than those figuring it out from scratch. This observational learning was thought to be limited to vertebrates with complex social structures. The extent of their memory is equally remarkable. Octopuses can remember solutions to problems for weeks, or even months. Impressive for an animal that only lives 1 to 2 years. They form cognitive maps of their environment, remembering the locations of hiding spots, hunting grounds, and dangers. They can navigate back to their dens from hunting trips using landmarks, even in murky water where vision is limited. Individual recognition is another stunning capability. Octopuses in aquariums learn to recognize their keepers, often showing excitement or aggression toward specific people. At the Seattle Aquarium, one octopus would consistently squirt water at one particular volunteer she apparently disliked, while being friendly to others. This wasn't random. She would wait until that specific person walked by, then drench them. Play behavior, considered a sign of advanced intelligence, has been observed in octopuses. They've been seen blowing balls back and forth in currents they create, carrying objects around for no apparent reason, and repeatedly performing actions that seem to serve no purpose except possibly entertainment. One octopus was observed spending considerable time blowing a pill bottle around its tank, pushing it into the water flow and catching it as it came back, essentially playing catch with itself. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of octopus intelligence is their apparent ability to plan for the future. Octopuses have been observed collecting specific materials for den building, arranging rocks and shells in particular ways to create better shelters. They've been seen saving food for later, hiding it in specific locations and returning to it. This temporal awareness, understanding that the future exists and can be prepared for, is rare in the animal kingdom. Their problem solving often shows what can only be called creativity. When traditional solutions don't work, octopuses improvise. One octopus, unable to open a screw-top jar from the outside, squeezed itself into the jar and pushed the lid off from the inside. Another, presented with a crab protected by a clear box it couldn't open, eventually figured out it could dig under the box through the sand. The complexity of octopus intelligence becomes even more impressive when you consider their lifestyle. These are largely solitary creatures, unlike dolphins, elephants, or primates, whose intelligence evolved in social contexts. Octopuses develop their cognitive abilities in isolation. They don't learn from parents. Mothers die after their eggs hatch. They don't cooperate with others of their species. Every octopus must figure out the world entirely on its own. This solitary intelligence raises profound questions. Why would a creature that lives alone, reproduces once, and dies young need such sophisticated cognitive abilities? The traditional view that intelligence evolves primarily for social interaction doesn't apply here. Octopuses suggest that intelligence can evolve for entirely different reasons. Perhaps the cognitive demands of camouflage, the flexibility needed for a soft body, or the challenges of hunting in complex three-dimensional environments. The study of octopus intelligence has revealed something even more extraordinary than their individual capabilities. They might be conscious. This is controversial territory. Consciousness is difficult enough to define in humans, let alone prove in an animal that last shared a common ancestor with us, when the most complex life form was a flatworm. But the evidence is compelling. In 2012, a group of neuroscientists signed the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, which stated that octopuses, along with all mammals and birds, possess consciousness. This wasn't a casual claim. It was based on neurological, behavioral, and evolutionary evidence. Octopuses show signs of experiencing pain not just as a reflex but as an emotional state. They avoid situations where they've been hurt before. They groom wounded areas, and they respond to painkillers in ways suggesting they experience relief. They show preferences, favorite foods, favorite dens, even apparently favorite people. They exhibit what looks like curiosity, investigating new objects with no immediate benefit to themselves. Sleep behavior in octopuses is particularly intriguing. They have distinct sleep phases, including something resembling REM sleep. During this phase, their skin flickers through colors and patterns, their arms twitch, and their eyes move, all reminiscent of dreaming. What does an octopus dream about? We may never know, but the possibility that they dream at all suggests an inner life we're only beginning to appreciate. As we surface from our deep dive into the octopus mind, we're left with more questions than answers, and perhaps that's as it should be. The octopus reminds us that intelligence isn't a ladder with humans at the top, but a vast landscape with many peaks, each representing a different solution to the challenges of existence. These 8-armed aliens in our oceans challenge every assumption we have about intelligence. They show us that consciousness doesn't require a backbone, that problem-solving doesn't need a long life to evolve, that intelligence can be distributed rather than centralized. They prove that there are ways of being smart that we're only beginning to understand. The tragedy is that just as we're beginning to appreciate octopus intelligence, we're destroying their habitats. Ocean acidification, warming waters, pollution, and overfishing threaten octopus populations worldwide. We risk losing these remarkable minds before we fully understand them. But there's hope too. The more we learn about octopus intelligence, the more we're forced to reconsider our relationship with the natural world. If intelligence, this sophisticated, can evolve in a creature so different from us, what other forms of consciousness might we be overlooking? What other minds share our planet, thinking thoughts we can't imagine, solving problems we don't even know exist? Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you'll dream of the octopus, moving like liquid thought through coral reefs, its skin a canvas of shifting colors, its distributed mind processing a world we can barely imagine. Remember that somewhere in the dark oceans, these alien intelligences are living their brief, brilliant lives, solving problems, creating patterns, possibly even dreaming their own alien dreams. The octopus asks us to expand our definition of intelligence, to recognize minds that work in ways radically different from our own. In doing so, they offer us a profound gift, the knowledge that we are not alone in consciousness, that Earth hosts not one but many experiments in awareness, each strange and wonderful in its own way. Sweet dreams, and remember, while you sleep with your single brain, somewhere an octopus is thinking with 9. But let's delve deeper into how evolution crafted this masterpiece of distributed intelligence, because the octopus represents one of nature's most spectacular experiments in cognitive architecture. The journey from simple mollusk to complex problem solver wasn't straightforward. The earliest cephalopods, appearing around 500 million years ago, were simple creatures with shells. They lived slow lives on the ocean floor, grazing on algae and detritus. Intelligence wasn't necessary. A shell and the ability to withdraw into it were sufficient survival strategies. To gain change during the Mesozoic marine revolution, roughly 250 million years ago. This was an arms race in the oceans, with predators developing new weapons and prey developing new defenses. Fish evolved better eyes, faster swimming, pack hunting. Marine reptiles grew to enormous sizes with crushing jaws. The peaceful ocean floor became a battlefield. For cephalopods, this pressure created a fork in their evolutionary road. The nautiluses kept their shells and survived by retreating to deeper waters where predation pressure was lower. But the ancestors of octopuses chose a radically different path. They gave up their armor for intelligence and flexibility. This transition happened gradually. First, the shell became internal and reduced, as in cuttlefish. Then it disappeared entirely in octopuses. Each step required compensation, better camouflage, faster reactions, more complex behavior. The octopus lineage was essentially betting everything on brains over brawn, cognition over armor. The loss of the shell had cascade effects throughout octopus anatomy. Without a rigid structure, they needed a new kind of body control. The solution was a muscular hydrostat system, using water pressure and muscle coordination to create temporary rigidity when needed. Your tongue works on the same principle, but octopuses took it to an extreme, building their entire body this way. This soft body created unique cognitive demands. Imagine trying to control a body with infinite degrees of freedom, where every part can move independently in any direction. The computational requirements are staggering. Computer scientists trying to model octopus movement have found it requires processing power that would challenge supercomputers. The solution was distributed processing, giving each arm its own neural cluster. But this created a new challenge: coordination. How do 8 semi-independent arms work together without getting tangled or working at cross purposes? The octopus evolved a hierarchical control system, where the central brain sets goals and the arms figure out execution. It's like a CEO managing 8 department heads, each running their own division, but working toward common objectives. The biochemistry of octopus intelligence is as alien as their anatomy. While our neurons use primarily sodium and potassium ions for signaling, octopus neurons rely heavily on calcium ions. This isn't just a minor difference. It fundamentally changes how their nervous system operates. Calcium-based signaling is slower, but more modulatable than our sodium-potassium system. This means octopus neurons can more easily adjust their sensitivity, essentially changing their personality based on context. A neuron might be highly responsive in one situation and nearly dormant in another. This flexibility at the cellular level might contribute to their behavioral flexibility. Their blood is equally alien. Instead of iron-based hemoglobin, octopuses use copper-based hemocyanin to carry oxygen. This gives their blood a blue color and makes it less efficient at oxygen transport than ours. In cold, oxygen-rich water, this isn't a problem, but it means octopuses are extremely sensitive to temperature and oxygen levels. A few degrees of warming can literally suffocate them. This metabolic constraint shapes their intelligence. Unlike mammals, which can sustain high activity levels for extended periods, octopuses must be efficient. They can't afford to waste energy on unnecessary neural activity. Every thought, every decision, Every movement must be optimized. This might explain their incredible efficiency at problem solving. They simply can't afford trial and error the way we can. The neurotransmitter systems in octopuses are both familiar and strange. They use serotonin, dopamine, and acetylcholine like we do, but in different proportions and contexts. They have massive cholinergic systems, using acetylcholine as their primary neurotransmitter, while mammals rely more on glutamate and GABA. This different chemical language might create fundamentally different subjective experiences. Recent research has found that octopuses can edit their own RNA on the fly, changing the proteins their neurons produce in response to temperature changes or other environmental factors. This means they can literally rewire their brains at the molecular level, adapting their neural processing to different conditions. It's like having hardware that can reprogram itself, something computer scientists can only dream of. One of the deepest mysteries about octopus intelligence is why such sophisticated cognition evolved in an essentially antisocial animal. The conventional wisdom in evolutionary biology is that complex intelligence evolves primarily for social interaction, keeping track of relationships, forming alliances, deceiving rivals. This social intelligence hypothesis explains the big brains of primates, dolphins, and elephants. But octopuses turn this idea upside down. They're solitary from birth, never knowing their parents, rarely interacting with their own species except to mate, and then only briefly. They don't form groups, don't cooperate, don't teach their young. By all rights, they shouldn't need big brains. Yet recent discoveries are complicating this picture. The larger Pacific-striped octopus, discovered officially only in 2015, shows remarkably social behaviors. They live in groups, share dens, and even mate beak to beak, while both partners are still alive and active, unlike most octopuses where the male maintains a safe distance to avoid being eaten. In 2009, researchers discovered Octopuses off the coast of Australia, a site where dozens of Sydney octopuses congregate. They've observed complex social interactions there, hierarchies, territorial disputes, and what might be communication through color patterns. Similar sites have since been found, suggesting that under certain conditions, octopuses can be social. These discoveries raise intriguing questions. Is social behavior a latent capability in all octopuses, expressed only when conditions are right, or are some species evolving toward sociality? If octopuses had longer lifespans, would they develop culture, passing knowledge between generations? The solitary nature of most octopuses makes their intelligence even more remarkable. Every individual must discover the world anew, learning through personal experience rather than social transmission. They're like geniuses born into solitary confinement, figuring out the universe, with no teachers, no peers, no cultural knowledge to build upon. The way octopuses learn reveals fundamental differences in how their intelligence operates compared to ours. They show remarkably fast learning curves, often solving problems in just a few attempts that would take many mammals, dozens of trials. This rapid learning might be necessitated by their short lifespan. Most octopuses live only 1 to 2 years. They don't have time for the slow, error-prone learning that characterizes much of mammalian development. They need to get smart fast or die. But their learning isn't just fast, it's flexible. Octopuses can learn through multiple modalities simultaneously. They integrate visual, tactile, and chemical information in ways that suggest a unified sensory experience rather than separate channels. When an octopus explores an object, it's seeing it, feeling it, and tasting it simultaneously with its arms, creating a multidimensional understanding we can barely imagine. Their ability to learn by observation is particularly remarkable given their solitary nature. In the wild, they rarely have the opportunity to watch other octopuses, yet in laboratory settings they readily learn from watching others, suggesting this capability evolved for some other purpose. Perhaps they learn by watching their prey, understanding the escape patterns of crabs or the defensive behaviors of fish. The octopus memory system appears to work differently from ours. They have excellent short-term memory and can retain information for weeks or months. Impressive for such a short-lived animal. But they don't seem to consolidate memories the same way we do. They don't show the gradual strengthening of memories over time that characterizes mammalian learning. Instead, they seem to form memories in a more binary fashion, either remembering perfectly or not at all. This might relate to their sleep patterns. Octopuses do sleep, showing distinct quiet and active phases resembling our non-REM and REM sleep. During active sleep, their skin patterns change rapidly, their eyes move, and their arms twitch. Are they dreaming? Consolidating memories? Processing the day's camouflage patterns? We don't know, but the similarity to mammalian sleep suggests convergent evolution of sleep functions. Perhaps no aspect of octopus behavior is more intriguing than what appears to be aesthetic sense, an appreciation for beauty, or at least pattern for its own sake. Octopuses in captivity have been observed creating arrangements of objects in their tanks that serve no obvious functional purpose. They'll organize shells and rocks in patterns, maintain these arrangements, and even get agitated if researchers disturb them. Some octopuses seem to have color preferences. In choice experiments, they consistently select certain colors over others, even when there's no reward associated. They'll spend more time near objects of preferred colors, incorporate them into their dens, or carry them around. The patterns they create on their skin during rest or sleep are particularly intriguing. These aren't camouflage. They're not matching anything in their environment. They're not communication. There's no one to signal to. They appear to be spontaneous pattern generation, possibly random neural firing, creating visual noise, or possibly something more, an octopus equivalent of doodling or dreaming in color. Some researchers have suggested that the complex patterns octopuses create might serve a cognitive function, helping to organize neural activity or process information. The skin, with its millions of chromatophores, might be a kind of external brain display, showing the octopus's internal state in real time. From an engineering perspective, the octopus is a masterclass in soft robotics. Engineers have spent decades trying to replicate what octopuses do naturally, creating flexible, adaptive machines that can squeeze through small spaces, manipulate delicate objects, and change their properties on demand. The octopus arm is a particular marvel. It can extend to twice its relaxed length or contract to half. It can be completely limp or rigid enough to push open a clamshell. It can twist in any direction, fold back on itself, or form complex shapes. All of this is achieved without any bones, joints, or fixed pivot points. The secret is in the arrangement of muscles. Each arm contains longitudinal muscles running along its length, transverse muscles running across, and helical muscles spiraling around. By coordinating these three muscle groups, the octopus can create any movement imaginable. It's like having a universal joint that can become any tool, lever, screw, rope, or spring, depending on need. The suckers add another layer of complexity. Each of the roughly 240 suckers per arm can be controlled independently. They can taste what they touch, grip with varying force, and even discriminate between textures. The rim of each sucker is loaded with chemoreceptors, essentially making each one a tongue-hand hybrid. This design has inspired a new generation of soft robots. Engineers are developing octopus-inspired surgical tools that can navigate through the body without damaging tissue, rescue robots that can squeeze through rubble, and underwater vehicles that can manipulate objects with unprecedented dexterity. The question of octopus consciousness touches on some of the deepest problems in philosophy and neuroscience. What is consciousness? How do we recognize it in beings that can't tell us about their experiences? And what would consciousness feel like in a distributed nervous system? The evidence for octopus consciousness is compelling but indirect. They show all the behavioral signs we associate with consciousness in mammals. Self-recognition. Octopuses can distinguish their own arms from those of other octopuses. Apparent emotional states. They turn pale when afraid, red when aggressive, and what looks like suffering when injured. They also show metacognition, awareness of their own knowledge. In experiments, Octopuses demonstrate different levels of confidence in their choices. When uncertain, they'll approach slowly, retreat and try again, or seek additional information. This suggests they know what they know, and what they don't know. The distributed nature of their nervous system raises fascinating questions about the unity of consciousness. Do octopuses have one conscious experience or 9, one for each brain? When an arm is severed and continues to react for an hour, is it conscious? These questions push against the boundaries of what we mean by consciousness. Some philosophers have suggested that octopus consciousness might be fundamentally different from ours, not lesser, just alien. Their experience might be more like a jazz ensemble than a symphony, with multiple centers of awareness, coordinating but maintaining independence. They might experience their body not as a unified whole, but as a confederation of semi-autonomous parts. The cultural revolution, the discovery of octopus intelligence, is forcing us to reconsider our relationship with invertebrates. For centuries, we've treated invertebrates as essentially biological robots, capable of reflexes, but not genuine cognition or feeling. The octopus shatters this assumption. In 2010, the European Union included octopuses in its animal welfare laws, recognizing them as sentient beings capable of suffering. The UK followed suit in 2022. These legal recognitions mark a profound shift in how we view invertebrate consciousness. Marine biologists who work with octopuses often describe emotional connections that surprise them. Jennifer Mather, a leading octopus researcher, speaks of octopuses with distinct personalities: shy ones, bold ones, curious ones, aggressive ones. She and other researchers often name their study subjects and speak of them as individuals, not specimens. The ethical implications are significant. If octopuses are conscious, if they can suffer and have preferences, how should that affect how we treat them? Octopus farming is a growing industry, but keeping intelligent solitary creatures in captivity raises welfare concerns. Some countries are beginning to ban octopus farming before it even starts. We're still in the early stages of understanding octopus intelligence. New technologies are opening windows into their minds that were previously closed. Underwater cameras that can track octopuses in the wild are revealing behaviors never seen in captivity. Neural imaging techniques adapted for soft-bodied animals are beginning to show how their distributed nervous system coordinates. Machine learning is helping decode octopus communication. By analyzing thousands of hours of video, AI systems are identifying patterns in color changes and body postures that might constitute a visual language. Early results suggest octopuses might have word-specific patterns that consistently appear in specific contexts. Genetic studies are revealing the molecular basis of octopus intelligence. They have expanded families of genes involved in neural development, including some previously thought unique to vertebrates. They can edit their RNA extensively, allowing them to fine-tune their proteins for different conditions. These discoveries are rewriting our understanding of how intelligence evolves. Studying octopus intelligence is like looking in a funhouse mirror. We see intelligence reflected back, but distorted in ways that reveal hidden assumptions about our own minds. The octopus shows us that our way of being intelligent, centralized, social, long-lived is just one solution among many. They remind us that intelligence isn't a single thing but a collection of capabilities that can be assembled in different ways. Problem-solving can exist without language. Memory can exist without culture. Consciousness might exist without self-reflection as we know it. The octopus also shows us the importance of embodiment in cognition. Their intelligence isn't separate from their soft bodies and distributed nervous system. It emerges from them. The way they think is inseparable from the way they move, sense, and exist in the world. As we conclude our journey into the alien intelligence of the octopus, we're left with a sense of wonder and humility. Here on our own planet, in our own oceans, lives a form of consciousness so different from ours that understanding it stretches our imagination to its limits. The octopus reminds us that Earth is still full of mysteries, that intelligence comes in forms we're only beginning to recognize, that consciousness might be far more widespread and varied than we ever imagined. They show us that aliens aren't just in outer space. They're right here, sharing our world, thinking thoughts we can't fathom, with minds we're only beginning to understand. As you drift towards sleep tonight, imagine the octopuses in oceans around the world, their skin shimmering with colors we can't fully see, their distributed minds processing a world we can't fully imagine. Picture them solving problems with their 8-armed intelligence, dreaming perhaps in patterns of color and texture, living their brief, brilliant lives in the liquid darkness of the sea. Remember that intelligence doesn't require a backbone, that consciousness doesn't need to look like ours, that minds can be distributed, inverted, alien, and still undeniably real. The octopus asks us to expand our concept of what it means to think, to feel, to be aware. Sweet dreams, and know that while you sleep with your unified consciousness, somewhere in the ocean, an 8-armed genius is thinking distributed thoughts, its skin painting patterns in the darkness, its alien mind touching ours across the vast divide of evolutionary time. Tomorrow, when you wake, you'll return to a world where intelligence seems familiar, centered in heads, expressed in words, lived in social groups. But perhaps you'll remember the octopus, and know that somewhere, intelligence dances to a completely different rhythm, boneless, short-lived, solitary, and magnificent. Let's dive deeper into what might be the most sophisticated communication system we don't understand, the chromatic language of octopuses. When we watch an octopus change colors, we're potentially witnessing a conversation we can't comprehend, poetry written in pigment, or thoughts made visible on skin. The speed and precision of octopus color changes suggest something far more complex than simple camouflage. In laboratory settings, researchers have documented octopuses creating specific patterns in response to specific situations, distinctive displays for aggression, submission, mating interest, and fear. But these might just be the crude vocabulary we can recognize, like picking out a few words from an alien transmission, while missing the full message. Consider the bandwidth of communication available to an octopus. With millions of chromatophores that can change independently, the number of possible patterns is essentially infinite. If each pattern could convey meaning, the octopus's skin would be capable of expressing more information than any human language. They could theoretically display entire concepts instantaneously that would take us paragraphs to explain. Roger Hanlon, a leading researcher in cephalopod communication, has identified what he calls a chromatic vocabulary, basic patterns that appear consistently across different species. There's the diamantic display, high contrast patterns that startle predators, the passing cloud, waves of dark color that roll across the body, possibly hypnotizing prey, the flamboyant display, bright, high contrast patterns that might serve as warnings. But between these dramatic displays lies a subtle world of chromatic whispers we're only beginning to notice. Slight changes in hue, barely perceptible pulsing patterns, gradients that shift across the body, all might carry meaning. Two octopuses meeting in the wild often engage in what can only be described as a color conversation, patterns flowing between them in apparent response to each other. The most intriguing possibility is that octopuses might use their skin to display their internal states directly. When we humans feel emotions, we keep them largely hidden inside our skulls, revealed only through subtle facial expressions or body language. But what if octopuses wear their thoughts on their skin? What if every pattern is a direct representation of neural activity, a window into their alien consciousness? This idea isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. The neural pathways controlling chromatophores are remarkably direct, with less processing between brain and display than you might expect. It's almost as if the octopus's skin is an extension of its brain, a visual cortex turned inside out. When an octopus dreams and its skin flickers through patterns, we might be watching its thoughts play out in real time. The physical structure of the octopus nervous system creates possibilities for consciousness that we can barely imagine. With neural clusters in each arm capable of processing information independently, an octopus might experience multiple streams of consciousness simultaneously. Imagine if your hands could think for themselves, not just reflexively pulling away from heat, but actually processing information, making decisions, having preferences. Now imagine 8 such appendages, each tasting what it touches, each capable of solving problems independently, yet all somehow coordinating into a unified organism. This is the daily experience of every octopus. Research by Benjamin Huckner at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem has shown that octopus arms can perform complex behaviors without any input from the central brain. A severed arm will still avoid unpleasant stimuli, seek food, and even try to pass food to where the mouth would be. This suggests each arm contains not just reflexes, but something approaching independent cognition. The central brain appears to function more like a coordinator than a controller. It sets goals and priorities: find food, escape danger, explore that crevice, but the arms figure out the details. It's a fundamentally different architecture from our centralized processing, more like a distributed computing network than a single processor. This raises profound questions about the subjective experience of being an octopus. Do they feel their arms as self or as semi-autonomous assistants? When an arm is exploring a crevice while the central brain watches for predators, is there one experience or multiple experiences happening simultaneously? We may never know, but the possibility of distributed consciousness challenges our most basic assumptions about what it means to be aware. The octopus brain shows other alien features. Unlike mammalian brains with distinct regions for different functions, the octopus brain is more uniformly structured, with similar cell types throughout. This might allow for more flexible processing, with different regions taking on different roles as needed. It's like having a brain made of stem cells that can become whatever type of processor is required at the moment. The discovery that octopuses appear to dream has profound implications for understanding consciousness. Sleep was once thought to be a simple state of inactivity, then understood as crucial for memory consolidation in complex vertebrates. But if octopuses dream, it suggests that sleep and dreaming are fundamental features of any sufficiently complex consciousness, regardless of its evolutionary origin. During what appears to be REM-like sleep, octopuses display extraordinary behaviors. Their skin cycles through complex patterns, sometimes matching patterns they used while hunting earlier, sometimes displaying entirely novel combinations. Their arms twitch and curl in ways that suggest movement through dream spaces. Their eyes, even while closed, dart back and forth beneath their lids. Silvia Medeiros and her team at the Brain Institute of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil have documented these sleep states in detail. They found that octopuses cycle between quiet sleep and active sleep roughly every 30 to 40 minutes. During quiet sleep, the octopus is pale and still. During active sleep, lasting only 1 to 2 minutes, the skin becomes a canvas of shifting patterns and colors. What could an octopus dream about? With their distributed consciousness, do they have 8 different dream narratives happening simultaneously? Do they dream in textures and tastes as well as images, given that their arms can taste and feel? When they display camouflage patterns during sleep, are they dreaming of hiding, or is hiding itself a kind of dream for them? The evolutionary implications are staggering. If both vertebrates and cephalopods dream, it suggests that either dreaming evolved independently in both lineages, a remarkable case of convergent evolution, or that some form of dreaming dates back to our common ancestor over 600 million years ago. Either possibility revolutionizes our understanding of consciousness and its origins. Living only 1 to 2 years. Octopuses face a temporal challenge unique among intelligent animals. They must compress a lifetime of learning and experience into what for a human would be barely toddlerhood. This might have driven the evolution of their remarkable learning speed and efficiency. But how does an octopus perceive time? With no cultural transmission of knowledge, no stories passed down through generations, each octopus lives in an eternal present, disconnected from both past and future beyond its own brief existence. They can't know that their mother died after laying eggs, can't anticipate that they too will die after reproducing. Their intelligence exists in a bubble of now, making their problem-solving abilities even more remarkable. Some researchers speculate that octopuses might experience time differently than we do. Their distributed nervous system might process temporal information in parallel rather than series, experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. An arm exploring a crevice might be operating on a different temporal rhythm than the central brain watching for predators. The shortness of their lives might also contribute to their apparent fearlessness and curiosity. Without the burden of preserving themselves for decades, octopuses can afford to be bold, to explore, to take risks that longer-lived animals might avoid. Every day represents a significant fraction of their total existence, making each moment proportionally more significant than for long-lived species. This compressed existence might also explain their incredible efficiency at problem-solving. They don't have time for the slow, methodical learning that characterizes much mammalian intelligence. They need to extract maximum information from minimum experience, to generalize from single examples, to innovate rather than iterate. One of the most puzzling aspects of octopus biology is their semiparity. They reproduce once and then die. After mating, male octopuses enter senescence and die within weeks. Females survive longer, guarding their eggs obsessively, not eating, slowly wasting away until they die just as their offspring hatch. This programmed death is controlled by the optic glands, structures behind the octopus's eyes that function similarly to the pituitary gland in vertebrates. When these glands are surgically removed, female octopuses will abandon their eggs, resume eating, and live for months longer. But they also behave erratically, suggesting the optic glands coordinate more than just reproduction. Why would such intelligent creatures evolve to die after reproducing? One theory suggests it's about avoiding competition with their own offspring. In the resource-limited ocean environment, having multiple generations competing for the same resources might be detrimental. By dying, parents make room for their offspring. But this explanation feels incomplete for such intelligent animals. Perhaps the metabolic cost of maintaining such a complex nervous system is so high that evolution found it more efficient to build disposable geniuses rather than long-lived ones. Or perhaps there's something about the octopus nervous system that makes it inherently unstable over time, accumulating errors that make longer life impossible. The tragedy of octopus senescence is watching intelligence fade. In their final weeks, octopuses lose coordination, their problem-solving abilities decline, and their magnificent color-changing abilities become erratic. It's as if their distributed consciousness is coming apart, each part losing connection with the others. For creatures so defined by their cognitive abilities, it seems a particularly cruel end. While we know most about shallow water octopuses that we can observe and study, the deep sea holds octopus species that push the boundaries of what we thought possible even further. The glass octopuses, with transparent bodies that make them nearly invisible. The Dumbo octopuses, living at depths of 7,000 meters, dealing with pressure that would crush most life. The telescope octopus, with tubular eyes that point upward, watching for silhouettes against the faint light from above. These deep-sea species might possess forms of intelligence we haven't even imagined, living in eternal darkness, under crushing pressure, in near-freezing water. They face cognitive challenges entirely different from their shallow water relatives. How do you navigate without landmarks? How do you communicate without light? How do you find prey in the vast emptiness of the deep? Some deep-sea octopuses have evolved bioluminescence, adding another dimension to their communication abilities. They can create light, as well as pattern and color. The glass octopus has light-producing organs that might serve for counter-illumination camouflage or communication. Imagine the possibilities of a language that combines chromatic patterns with controlled bioluminescence, like having a TV screen that can also project holograms. The vampire squid, despite its name, is actually more closely related to octopuses than to squid. Living in the oxygen minimum zone where most animals can't survive, it has evolved unique adaptations, including the ability to turn itself inside out, displaying spines as a defense. Its intelligence is largely unknown, but its ability to thrive in such an extreme environment suggests cognitive capabilities we're only beginning to appreciate. The tool-making revolution. Recent observations have revolutionized our understanding of octopus tool use. It's not just that they use tools, many animals do that. It's the flexibility, creativity, and forward planning involved in their tool use that's remarkable. The veined octopus, carrying coconut shell halves across the ocean floor, assembling them into a shelter when needed, shows planning for future use. This isn't reactive tool use, finding something useful in the moment. It's proactive, carrying something uncomfortable and cumbersome because it might be useful later. This suggests mental time travel, the ability to imagine future scenarios and prepare for them. But tool use goes beyond coconut shells. Octopuses have been observed using jellyfish tentacles as weapons, wielding them to sting potential threats. They arrange rocks to create better dens, sometimes bringing rocks from considerable distances to get just the right configuration. They've been seen using shells and debris to create doors for their dens, selecting pieces that fit perfectly. In laboratory settings, octopuses have shown even more remarkable tool innovation. Given novel problems and potential tools, they can figure out uses that weren't explicitly demonstrated. One octopus learned to use a plastic bottle as a shield against a rival, holding it between itself and the aggressor. Another figured out how to use a broken pipe as a trumpet, directing water flow to blast food out of crevices. This flexibility suggests that octopuses don't just learn specific tool use behaviors but understand something more abstract about cause and effect, about objects as potential modifiers of other objects or situations. It's a level of physical reasoning that approaches what we see in great apes. Despite the vast evolutionary distance. Can octopuses count? Recent experiments suggest they might have numerical abilities we're only beginning to explore. When presented with different quantities of food items, octopuses consistently choose the larger quantity, even when individual item size is controlled for. This suggests they can assess quantity independent of volume or mass. More intriguingly, octopuses seem to understand something about ratios. In experiments where they had to choose between different ratios of preferred to non-preferred food items, they showed consistent preferences that suggested they weren't just counting but comparing proportions. This is a more abstract mathematical concept than simple counting. Their spatial navigation abilities also suggest sophisticated mathematical processing. Octopuses can navigate complex three-dimensional mazes, remember multiple routes, and even take shortcuts they've never traveled before, suggesting they build mental maps that allow for route planning. This requires complex spatial calculations, especially in the fluid, three-dimensional ocean environment where landmarks are few and currents can displace you. The way octopuses coordinate their 8 arms during locomotion might involve mathematical processing we don't yet understand. Each arm must push with the right force at the right angle at the right time, all while compensating for water currents, maintaining balance, and adjusting for the payload if they're carrying something. The calculations required are staggering, yet octopuses perform them effortlessly. Perhaps nothing challenges our assumptions about consciousness more than octopus personality. These aren't just behavioral tendencies or reflexive patterns. Octopuses show consistent individual differences in how they approach the world that can only be described as personality. Jennifer Mather's groundbreaking research identified 3 main personality dimensions in octopuses: activity, reactivity, and avoidance. Some octopuses are bold explorers, immediately investigating new objects. Others are cautious, observing from a distance before approaching. Some are aggressive, attacking anything unfamiliar. Others are shy, retreating at the slightest disturbance. These personalities are consistent across time and situations. A bold octopus remains bold, whether encountering a new food item, a potential predator, or a puzzle to solve. A shy octopus remains shy. This consistency suggests something more than simple behavioral responses. It suggests a subjective way of experiencing and interpreting the world. Individual octopuses also show preferences that seem purely aesthetic. Some prefer certain colors, consistently choosing red objects over blue ones even when no reward is involved. Some prefer certain textures, spending more time on rough surfaces than smooth ones. Some even seem to have musical preferences. In one aquarium, an octopus would move closer to the glass when certain types of music were played and retreat when others were played. These individual differences extend to problem-solving styles. Some octopuses are methodical, trying the same solution repeatedly with small variations. Others are innovative, quickly abandoning failed approaches for entirely new strategies. Some seem to think before acting, observing a problem for extended periods before attempting a solution. Others immediately engage in trial and error. The existence of personality in a short-lived solitary invertebrate challenges our understanding of what personality is and why it evolves. Without social groups to fill different niches, without long lives to develop and refine personality over time, why would octopuses have such distinct individual characters? The intelligence of octopuses creates unique challenges for keeping them in captivity. Unlike many animals that adapt to captive life, octopuses often seem aware of their captivity in ways that suggest a level of metacognition we don't usually attribute to invertebrates. Octopuses in aquariums frequently attempt escape, not just random probing of boundaries, but what appears to be systematic testing of their enclosure. They learn the routines of their keepers, attempting escapes when they know no one will be watching. They've been known to short-circuit lights, open supposedly octopus-proof latches, and even dismantle filtration systems. Some octopuses seem to experience something resembling boredom in captivity. Without the complex environment and challenges of the wild, they become listless, their color-changing abilities dulled, their problem-solving skills atrophied. Aquariums have found that octopuses need constant enrichment, new puzzles, rearranged environments, novel objects, to maintain their physical and apparently psychological health. The relationship between octopuses and their keepers often becomes remarkably personal. Octopuses learn to recognize individual humans, showing excitement or aggression towards specific people. Some keepers report feeling that the octopus is studying them as much as they're studying it, a mutual observation that feels more like an interspecies relationship than typical animal husbandry. This has led to ethical questions about keeping such intelligent beings in captivity. If octopuses are conscious, if they have preferences and personalities, if they can suffer from boredom and frustration, what right do we have to confine them? Some facilities have stopped keeping octopuses entirely, while others have radically redesigned their octopus exhibits to provide more stimulation and choice. Recent advances in genetic sequencing have revealed just how alien octopus biology really is. Their genome is massive, nearly as large as the human genome, but organized completely differently. They have an unprecedented number of genes in certain families, particularly those involved in neural development and signal transduction. Most remarkably, octopuses can edit their own RNA on a massive scale. While humans edit less than 1% of our RNA, octopuses edit up to 60% of their neural RNA. This means they can change the proteins their cells produce without changing their DNA, allowing for incredible flexibility in how their nervous system functions. This RNA editing might be the key to octopus intelligence. It allows them to fine-tune their neural proteins for different temperatures, pressures, or other environmental conditions. It might also allow for rapid behavioral adaptation without waiting for genetic evolution. In essence, octopuses can reprogram their brains on the fly. The discovery of protocaterin genes in octopuses was particularly surprising. These genes, previously thought unique to vertebrates, are crucial for neural development and creating the complex connections between neurons. Octopuses have 168 protocaterin genes, second only to vertebrates, suggesting convergent evolution of the molecular machinery for building complex brains. Transposon activity, jumping genes that can move around the genome, is also unusually high in octopus neural tissue. This genetic instability might contribute to their behavioral flexibility and learning abilities, though it might also contribute to their short lifespans. It's as if octopuses have chosen genetic innovation over genetic stability. As ocean temperatures rise and acidity increases, octopuses face an uncertain future. Their copper-based blood is particularly sensitive to temperature and pH changes. A few degrees of warming or slight acidification can dramatically reduce their oxygen-carrying capacity. Some octopuses are already showing signs of stress. Their reproductive cycles are disrupted, their growth rates altered, their behavior becoming erratic. The very metabolic efficiency that allowed them to evolve such complex brains might make them particularly vulnerable to climate change. But octopuses are also showing remarkable adaptability. Some species are expanding their ranges, moving into previously too cold waters as temperatures rise. Others are shifting their depth preferences, moving deeper to escape warming surface waters. City-dwelling octopuses in harbors and marinas show that some species can adapt to human-altered environments. The question is whether they can adapt fast enough. With their short generation times, octopuses can evolve quickly, but climate change is happening at unprecedented rates. Their RNA editing abilities might give them an edge, allowing for rapid physiological adaptation, but even this remarkable capability has limits. Understanding octopus intelligence isn't just an academic exercise, it's crucial for conservation. These remarkable minds are threatened by overfishing, habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change. In many parts of the world, octopus fishing is completely unregulated, with no consideration for sustainability or welfare. The intelligence of octopuses argues for their protection, not just as resources but as sentient beings. Some countries are beginning to recognize this, implementing welfare standards for octopuses in research and aquaculture. But we're far from a global consensus on how to treat these intelligent invertebrates. The proposal for octopus farms raises particular concerns. Unlike fish farming, which at least has the argument of reducing pressure on wild populations, octopuses are carnivores requiring fish as feed. Farming them would increase pressure on wild fish populations while confining intelligent solitary creatures in industrial conditions. The welfare implications are staggering. Marine protected areas that include octopus habitat are crucial, but protecting octopuses requires understanding their needs. Den sites, hunting grounds, breeding areas. Each species has different requirements, and our knowledge of many species is still rudimentary. We're trying to protect intelligences we barely understand. New technologies are opening unprecedented windows into octopus intelligence. Miniaturized cameras that can follow octopuses in the wild are revealing behaviors never seen before. Neural recording devices adapted for soft-bodied animals are beginning to show how their distributed nervous system coordinates. AI analysis of thousands of hours of octopus behavior is revealing patterns invisible to human observers. Virtual reality systems for octopuses, yes, that's a real thing, are allowing researchers to present controlled stimuli while monitoring neural and behavioral responses. Imagine an octopus wearing tiny VR goggles, navigating virtual reefs while scientists map its brain activity. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening now. Genetic engineering techniques might allow us to create octopuses with modified lifespans, potentially allowing for cultural transmission and social learning. While ethically complex, such research could reveal whether octopus intelligence is limited by their short lives or whether their cognitive architecture is fundamentally suited to their current lifestyle. Computer modeling of octopus nervous systems is revealing principles of distributed processing that could revolutionize AI and robotics. The octopus solution to intelligence, distributed, flexible, embodied, might be more efficient than our centralized approach for certain applications. The octopus forces us to confront fundamental questions about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. If a creature so different from us can be intelligent, conscious, perhaps even sentient, what does that say about the nature of mind itself? The distributed consciousness of octopuses challenges Western philosophy's emphasis on unified centralized consciousness. Eastern philosophies, with their concepts of distributed awareness and multiple centers of consciousness, might be better equipped to understand octopus experience. The octopus also challenges our moral frameworks. Most ethical systems are based on human experience or extended to animals similar to us. But how do we assign moral value to a form of consciousness we can barely comprehend? How do we weigh the interests of beings whose experience of the world is fundamentally alien to our own? As we come to the end of our exploration of octopus intelligence, we're left with more questions than answers. How does distributed consciousness feel from the inside? What is the subjective experience of thinking with your entire body? How does the world appear to a being that can taste with its skin and see polarized light? These questions may never be fully answered. The octopus mind may forever remain partially alien to us, accessible only through behavior and neurology, never through direct understanding. But perhaps that's as it should be. Perhaps the octopus's greatest gift to us is the reminder that intelligence can take forms we never imagined, that consciousness might be far more varied and widespread than we assumed. Every octopus in every ocean is a reminder that we share this planet with other minds, other ways of being conscious. They challenge our assumptions, expand our definitions, and humble our anthropocentric view of intelligence. They show us that Earth hosts not one but multiple experiments in awareness, each valuable, each irreplaceable. And so we return to where we began, with the recognition that we have aliens among us, intelligences as foreign as anything we might find among the stars. But unlike hypothetical extraterrestrials, we can observe octopuses, study them, even interact with them. They are aliens we can touch, minds we can begin to know, even if we can never fully understand them. The octopus represents one of evolution's most remarkable achievements, intelligence arising from a completely different blueprint than our own. They show us that consciousness doesn't require a backbone, that problem-solving doesn't need long life, that minds can be distributed rather than centralized. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you'll dream of octopuses, those 8-armed geniuses navigating their underwater world with distributed thoughts we can barely imagine. Picture them changing colors in the darkness, their skin a canvas of consciousness, their arms tasting the water, their alien minds processing reality in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about thinking itself. Remember that somewhere in the ocean right now, an octopus is solving a problem, recognizing a pattern, perhaps even dreaming its own alien dreams. It won't live long, a year or two at most, but in that brief time, it will experience the world with an intelligence as real and valid as our own, just utterly beautifully different. The octopus asks us to expand our conception of intelligence, to recognize minds that work in ways radically different from our own. They remind us that we are not the only thinkers on this planet, that consciousness comes in forms we're only beginning to discover. Sweet dreams, and remember, while you sleep with your centralized consciousness, somewhere an octopus is thinking distributed thoughts, its skin flickering with colors you can't see, its 8-armed intelligence touching the world in ways you can't imagine. A reminder that intelligence itself is far stranger, far more diverse, and far more wonderful than we ever dreamed.